it's utter insanity to me that has become a matter of public controversy. And this is why I say that when people in their communities see the problem, there should be broad-scale agreement. But you do have a cadre of people who live in a lot of these cities, and I will say in blue cities particularly with crime, who are not affected by crime because they're not living where you live.
Yep.
Which you live in a fine, I mean, where you live, I know that area well. It's where I lived most of my life. It's a fine area, but it's not up in the hills, right? I mean, It's not up in Malibu. And it's not at Barbara Streisand's estate where she's got armed guards outside. And so those people who are really spending a lot of money and making policy and deciding on no cash bail and all the rest of this kind of stuff. And we can't, it's an aspect of freedom. We have to have the ACLU suit to make sure that the police are not allowed to remove people's stuff from the street because it's an aspect of freedom to be sleeping on the street. And the fact that those people are so disconnected from the concerns of everyday life that it becomes a sin for you to mention the consequences of their policy is so dangerous because how else are you going to adjudicate whether the policy is good or bad if you can't talk about the consequences of the policy?
Well, let me give you another example. This happened recently, and I was really happy to see it because it's important for these groups to speak out about what they're experiencing in California. So members of the NAACP in the Bay Area, and we're talking about the NAACP, they're starting to speak out because they don't feel safe. They don't want their children to walk past, people smoking meth, injecting whatever, taking, fentanyl and all that. They want the city to be a lot more.
It's not just the NAACP. No parent, black, green, blue, white, brown, orange, whatever you say, okay? No parent would want their kids walking past people that are injecting themselves with heroin, meth, smoking weed, doing drugs, doing all kinds of things. But unfortunately, that's what's happening. And it's predominantly happening in, as Ben said, blue areas, blue districts run by Democrats and liberals and progressives for a long time. And they don't live in those areas.
Proactive in doing something about this because they feel that the communities that are overwhelmingly impacted by this happen to be poor minority communities.
Bingo.
And that is true. So you can't on one hand pretend like you care about these communities, you care about equity, you care about all of this, when the policies that you are promoting and advocating for are making it incredibly difficult for their children to grow up in safe neighborhoods, clean neighborhoods. I mean, we're spending in California billions of dollars every year on making the problems worse. Our schools need more funding. I mean, it is insane. What we're seeing right now is insane. I don't care if anyone gets mad at me for saying these things. If you're not living it, if you're not experiencing it, if you're not seeing it, and if you've chosen to ignore members of the NAACP on this issue, then maybe you need to, reevaluate what your values are.
And one of the things that's happened also with regard to the crime issue in Los Angeles, which again was a significant moving factor in my family leaving the state, was the attempt by politicians and the media to pretend away the problem. It really is a serious issue. And there have been reports, Los Angeles Times reported on this, about the police actively downgrading the level of crimes when they report them. So what used to be a felony is now considered a misdemeanor. What's considered a misdemeanor is no longer considered a crime.
This will blow your mind. In California, domestic violence, for instance, is not considered a felony. And I'm talking about domestic violence, including strangulation, is not considered a felony right now.
Anna, who do you have to thank for that? Maybe it's not you. But there's certainly progressives on your side of the aisle that would basically side with that. Definitely the Democrats, definitely the liberals, definitely the social justice warriors, definitely those elitists that don't even live in those areas that are basically virtue signaling. They're the ones whose policies, they're the ones that are putting the policies in place that allow this crap to occur, these crimes to occur.
Child trafficking in California, believe it or not, has been downgraded to a misdemeanor. How does that make any sense? And so a lot of the voters, I think, had the best of intentions. I was one of those voters where I voted for propositions in California that I felt were needed to essentially reform our criminal justice system because mass incarceration is a problem. There are all sorts of issues.
Mass incarceration, it's not a freaking problem. It's only a problem to you liberals and you leftists and you progressives. Somebody commits a crime, they do the goddamn time.
In our criminal justice system that need reform. But at the same time, I had no idea that when it came to, let's say, cashless bail or things like that, they were going to downgrade certain felonies to misdemeanors. I had no idea, right?
Happen?
So when that's part of the equation, I think it's important for voters to be fully informed on that so they're not surprised later. You get what I'm saying?
For sure.
Violent crime is violent crime.
Do you think people are going to wake up to this? And if so, how does that incentive structure work? So California is essentially a one-party state. Los Angeles is essentially a one-party city. Even if you're a Republican like Rick Caruso, you have to run like a Democrat in order to even get a share of the vote. So what are the alternatives in cities like this? So, I mean, you're obviously somebody who disagrees with a lot of your party on some of these issues, or at least the more radical wing of your party on some of these issues. You know, I've always considered myself a conservative, not a Republican. So there are situations where I've said I'm not voting for this candidate because this person does not meet with sort of my minimum standards for who should hold office, or this person is somebody who I did vote for, but now I'm unhappy with them. So how malleable are you with, for example, how you vote in a local election or even a national election?
Well, I mean, I don't know if malleable is the right word. I was very unhappy with local elections in 2022. Didn't feel like there were really a lot of good options. So that was depressing. And you're right in that California has become so blue that like any idea that challenges what the Democratic Party believes there is immediately disregarded. And I think that that's a shame, because even if I disagree with that point of view, I think it's important to have the debate, right? So I actually really enjoyed watching Karen Bass debate Rick Caruso. I thought that it actually forced her to acknowledge some of the weaknesses in her policy proposals and her ideas. And I don't know, I mean, I'm seeing her make some moves that I like. So hopefully she continues in that direction and she improves LA. I'll wait and see what happens before I really give my full judgment on that.
It's not going to happen.
I think the most important thing to do is for media figures to start having their viewers feel comfortable having conversations with people they disagree with, really, because they're not getting the full perspective. If they're relying on left media, they're getting one perspective and they're not hearing from the other side at all. And when they do hear from the other side, they're hearing from the extremes, saying insane, lunatic stuff, and they think that that's representative of everyone on the right. And I don't think that's necessarily true.
We'll get to more on that in just 1 second. First, let's
preaching to the choir. Anyways, we appreciate you taking the time to watch, folks. This was part 4 of the Daily Wire debate between Ana Kasparian from the Young Turks and Ben Shapiro. And you've been watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I've been your guest host. My name is Dr. Nasir. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, like, share, and follow us. Put your comments down below. Really like to know what your views are, what you thought of the reaction, what you thought of Anna's position or Ben's position. Would really love you to share your thoughts. And I'll share my final thought, which is, when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, you're wrong. We'll see you again next time, folks. Take care and stay safe.